An A4 page layout has a different aspect ratio from the US letter size, and that can be quite challenging to put the numbers together and calculate the perfect grid. So in this video, I'll walk you through how to calculate margin space based on page dimensions and the typographic leading value of text. Now, using those numeric values, we'll set up the right margins, the right guides, and baseline grid to ensure your magazine layout is perfectly balanced. Hi everyone, I am your instructor, Elias Sarantopoulos, and welcome to this exciting new Affinity Canva Layout training video. Up next. In Affinity Canva, we are working inside the Layout Studio for publishing-based page layout. Now, before I go ahead and create a new document, first I'll bring up the settings panel and under the user interface, and for decimal places, for unit types, and for millimeters, since this is the standard in Europe, Asia, and most of the world, I will round up the decimals. So instead of 1, I'm going to set mine to 3, and that will ensure all inputs are displayed for precision and professional work. I'll click to close, and then under the File menu, I create a new document. For the preset orientation, I'll set mine to portraits, and I'll choose the A4 preset, which is 210 millimeters by 297 millimeters. Now, looking inside the document settings, the dots parent is set to 300, which is perfect for printing. Now, this page spread will be laid out as a 2-page spread, giving the document a spine. Now, that means I would toggle on the multi-page option and make sure the facing pages is also enabled. For this example layout, I'll set the number of pages to 3. Margins define the content, which may include text, images, and other content design. Typically, we set the margins here, but for now, I will keep the margin option disabled and set the margins in a different step. Bleed is the area extending past the edge of the page to avoid white strips appearing along the edge of the print work. I'll set the bleed to 3.175 millimeters, and that is 1/8 of an inch. I'll click to create a new document, and now it's time to determine the size of the margins and create a document grid. And because we want this to appear in the entire page spread, it is very important that we work inside the master pages. So under the window menu, layouts, I'll bring up the pages panel. Here are the 3 pages we just created. Now we need a master page. So I'll go ahead and click on the Add Master. By default, we get Master A, which is fine. I'll keep everything as is, and then I click OK. Now, when choosing the Master A page, I'll double-click on this thumbnail to make sure that I'm working inside both pages. For the units of measurement, we'll be using points since the leading size is always measured in points. The A4 page size in points is 595.27 points by 841.89 points, with an approximate aspect ratio of 1 to 1.4, and that's by dividing the height and the width. To maintain the aspect ratio, our layout grid will have 14 rows and 10 columns. That will give us almost a square grid. The height of each row needs to be as big as 1 line of text, 2 lines of text, or 3 lines of text, and so on. I'll set mine to be as big as 3 lines of text, so 14 rows times 3 lines, that equals 42 lines. Let's not forget the space in between columns, and that is the gutter space. In this case, we're going to have a total of 13 gutters. That will be 42 plus 13 gutters. That equals 55 lines from the top margin to the bottom margin. Here we need to make one important design decision, that is to set the leading size of the body text. Now, leading is the distance between two baselines of type. I'll set the leading point value to be 14 points, so 55 lines times 14 points, that equals to 770 points height, where most of the content will be contained. To determine the amount of space for the top and bottom margins, I'll take the page height of 842 points and subtract the 770 points. That gives us 72 points for the top and bottom margins combined. Now, it's a personal choice how I distribute the 72 points between the top and bottom margin. I'll make the top margin smaller since the bottom margin may include the folio, the page numbers, and the name of the magazine. So I'll set the top margin to 22 points and the bottom margin to 50 points. As for the inside and outside margin, I'll set those to 50 points, and that will give me enough breathing space on both sides. So, returning back to Affinity Canva Layout, let's first change the units of measurement from millimeters to points, since the leading size is always measured in points. Under the View menu, Show, I'll bring up the rulers, and then right here on the corner where the rulers intersect, I'll right-click and switch from millimeters to points. Under the View menu, I'll bring up the Guides panel. The number of columns will be set to 10. We're going to have 14 rows. The gutter space, that correlates with the size of the body text leading value, which we have set that earlier to 14 points. For the style, we've got two options, filled or outline. I'm going to use outline on my end. And setting up the margin, first I will disable the chain icon so I can set those values separately. So for the inner, that will be set to 50 points, the top margin to 22 points, the outer to 50 points, and the bottom also to 50 points, and then click to close. With the margins and guides already established, it's time to set up the baseline grid and adjust its preferences. A baseline grid is a grid of horizontal lines evenly spaced across the document. Under the View menu, I'll bring up the Baseline Grid panel. I'll enable Use Baseline Grids and also Show Baseline Grids. I'll change the display color to another color of my choice. So I switch to swatches, pick the gray color and just reduce its opacity. The start position will remain to 0, but this is going to be relative to the top margin since we had already set that on a previous step. The grid spacing, that correlates to the leading value of the body text, which is also set to 14 points. Here we have the display threshold, which controls when those grids become visible based on the zoom level. Since the display threshold is set to 70%, the baseline grid will only appear when we are zoomed in to 70% or more, which is the case here. So below that, as you can see, the baseline grid is hidden. So in this case, I'm going to set mine to 20% and then click to close. Though this technique can be a bit tedious, the results are accurate than randomly choosing margin values and placing guides.